The Feast of the Most Holy Name of Mary was reintroduced in recent times, but it goes back to the 1600s. It was instituted after the Turks had been repulsed from Vienna, and we know had that not been the case, the history of Europe would have been different. Rather, as in the occasion of Lepanto in 1571, or Lepanto, when the Feast of the Holy Rosary came into existence as a result of the Rosary repelling other cultures, other religions, and preserving Europe for the Catholic Church. Now, what is happening is that we are being attacked within that Catholic culture and from unexpected corners and sources, and it is far more insidious for that reason. Divide and conquer is the policy of the one whose name means divider, because diabolos comes from that root in Greek, dia, through, and balein, to open a niche in which you enter and divide. In a Catholic culture, there are specific areas in which, if we're not careful, we can fall. There are specific sins that Catholics seem to be very specialized at, and they sometimes raise the eyebrows of other Christians. When, not far from here, in Kilnacrot in the early 90s, Father Gerard had me with him in Cavan Town one day for some reason, and we noticed the Protestant school down there somewhere, and there was a comment apparently that you would not hear a swear word on that playground, which was interesting, that they on that level were faithful in their culture to the scriptural values of avoiding incoherence with regard to the authority of God over the tongue. Perfectly biblical, and why should it not be the case? I would like therefore to look just at that issue tonight, because it's something specifically Catholic, that as a culture, not just in Ireland but in other cultures too, there is a lot of elasticity with regard to making appeal to the sacred in conversation. Where I was ordained, in Italy, in Tuscany, it was an area where a specific sin was very courant. It was that of taking the Madonna's name, not necessarily with the name of Mary in it, but in the form of Madonna, Madonnina, and so on, and sometimes with expletives put in, which wasn't very nice. Anything to underline a point or to express an exclamation, bringing God, the saints, the sacred into our daily life, just to make a point. Now, if one listens to a conversation in Ireland, one holy name which comes in almost as a punctuation mark is that of Jesus himself, but in a toned-down form, or sometimes in its complete form, and even by pious souls. And by now, I hesitate to bring people into either the chapel where I have the Blessed Sacrament itself, or into the area which is used also as a chapel, at least once a week, because I have a Mass of Our Lady in Italian there every Saturday, and in which I have a relic of the True Cross. It's actually in the tabernacle there, and therefore it is a sacred place, because I know by now that the chances are that if somebody comes in there, offensive words will be in the air before too long, and I have a duty to protect the sacred. So I am by instinct a little hesitant to open that second door, and at least to start off a conversation in another area of the house, like the kitchen, which is slightly less directly vertical in presence and orientation, although all is sacred in the house of God. But why should that be? if one looks carefully at the issue in question, it's actually quite startling. There is a total lack of comprehension with regard to what language is doing. If one goes into certain situations of social life, one will find that vulgarity is the norm. Now, that is another area of abuse of the faculty that we have of communication, when we willingly opt for vulgarity in tone and in vocabulary. To use regularly and unnecessarily expressions which in some way invite demonic presence into our life and day is an indication that we are not at all fully aware of what the life of grace is about. If one is involved with exorcism, one will find that when the demon starts to speak through the mouth of the possessed person, very bad language also is used. Now, if therefore one is finding oneself in a place where that is the norm, and even worse if one is engaging in it oneself, one is therefore in some way resembling demonic powers. One is willingly navigating in that dark sphere. And then one will see sometimes the same people in church, and they will receive the Lord, their Maker, their King and Judge, on the same instrument, the tongue, which has been used to form offensive words against him. And not one will realize how perhaps incoherent the situation is. I have noticed that if one is handling parents in distress, they will tell you that at a certain age the language of their children is becoming offensive, aggressive, vulgar, brutal, loud, discourteous and aggressive. Now, these are all adjectives linked with the underworld, because if one loses one's soul, and one only has to look at some of the NDE testimonies on YouTube, one will find that the demons do just that. They take demonic pleasure, sadistic pleasure, in aggressing the lost souls with horrible words, violence, and all that goes with it. So what is happening there? Adolescents who opt for the joy of strength and virility in that field, without realizing it, are toys of the underworld. They are abdicating over grace, losing their innocence and wanting the other. Now, in moral theology we refer to the fundamental option, and although one cannot judge any individual, one can ask oneself whether the fundamental option is being reached at that point of progressive refusal of light and acceptance of the dark. Hence it is that there is no surprise when one sees a progressive spiral. First of all, soft drugs, and then through bad company, spurred on precisely by demonic forces, progressive orientation towards an irreversible dependence on things which become greater than themselves. I once saw it on the cover of Christian, it's the ecumenical Welsh magazine. It was the picture of a man, a little man, clinging for all his worth to the sides of a huge syringe. That says it all. And so, within our Catholic culture, that is the victory that we're up against, a victory that we have consented to and are nourishing every time we engage with even a soap opera which transmits the vulgar, the anti-God, the godless, the modern, the with it, and therefore by implication classes all the rest as without it and past it. Well, I'm afraid when it comes to the end, what will be past it will be the souls that haven't made it. And then the question poses itself in a different way. Why, as we would say in Ireland, did I not cop on? Hail, Queen of Heaven, the ocean star, guide of the wanderer here below. Shown on life's search, reclaim thy care, save us from peril and from woe. Mother of Christ, Star of the sea, pray for the wanderer, pray for me. Swearing. Fair Mother, as I hear thy maiden heart in prayer beat on, and look on these thine eyes that look into the distance where thou art, where others are, where worlds beyond these skies that cloud our sight. Look on and listen well. I can but lay my head on this thy breast, and love thee for a while, till mischief yell its fill of vomit grace from lips o'erblest. A tongue can bear the weight of angel hosts, and by a stroke itself an angel make, and in its airy wagging as it boasts, it can the weight of void at times mistake. For but a vibrant column moves a while, yet it bears rays that turn marred aeons vile.